How do I streamline my business systems? This is important for a lot of reasons, but the main reason is that you probably have enough with your business. Chances are, like, there's more than a 50% chance that your business has the stuff that it needs or your business is good. You just don't have necessarily have the tools or the resources or the systems to get it to the next level. I do this regularly with my coaching practice. I do this regularly with the show. Show's going to be having it's the third or 3 year anniversary on solstice, so beginning of winter on December 22nd. And so you might even notice little changes and differences in how I handle the show. That is absolutely on purpose. It's with thought. And so if you're going to have an independent business, or even if you're going to start a business in the upcoming year, you want to make sure that you have a system in place to handle that. There are changes happening within my household. There's changes happening with how I want to handle my business, even what type of business I want to do. There's all these ways that things are evolving, and I can tell that upcoming year is going to be different than this year. Even with my kids who are getting older, as if you have kids, like they get older by the day. That's kind of how it works. You need to make sure that you have a system in place, a framework, so that as those changes, typically changes that you know about, are coming, you can actually hold a space for those changes. The more independent you are, the more you need to be thoughtful with this process. My favorite book, at least over the last few years, I always come back to it, on this subject is called Upstream. Excuse me, it's called Upstream. It's by Dan Keith. I always get his name mixed up because he does a lot of books with his brother named Chip. And so I always get them mixed up. But this is like my favorite work of theirs. I've read a couple of their works that they've done together as brothers. But this one is like by far my favorite. And in fact, years ago, it was my favorite book of the year. It's this downstream thinking and there's upstream thinking. Downstream thinking is there's a crisis, we need to fix it. It's reactionary. Upstream is saying, if you think about a river, okay, I'm looking at the bend of the river up there. I see something coming around the literal bend. Let me create systems so that that won't be an issue later. A great example is given in the book, and he has a ridiculous amount of business examples and personal examples. A great example he gives in the book is there was, I think it was a small town, probably somewhere here, somewhere in the Midwest here in the United States. And there was a cop, a police officer, who was being rewarded because of the amount of tickets they were able to give out during a certain period of time. So, of course, that's revenue for the city. Doing, see how the sausage is made. That's revenue for the city. And then that ended up being, for that city or town, the metric as far as how well that police force was doing. Then it ended up being another police officer. Sorry, it looks like we have a little bit of lag, but it sounds like you guys heard me the whole time. Then there ended up being another police officer who actually found a better system to make sure that people didn't speed at all. So it was essentially a speed trap. So they would look for people to speed up because of a particular area of town. And so essentially a speed trap. They found a better way, this other police officer found a better way to make sure that people weren't speeding at all. But that meant less tickets. And that police department or government would have you thought that other police officer who found a way for people to slow down was actually doing less good work because the metric was over here based on the amount of tickets. That's upstream versus downstream thinking. Downstream is, oh, people are going to speed anyway. Let's go and give them tickets so they'll stop and we can make money for the school district. Upstream thinking is saying, why don't we go ahead and set up the street so that people can't speed? Avoid that whole thing. Depending on how you perhaps were raised, if you're in a work environment, how your work environment is structured, depending on how you run your life, then you might be caught up in the downstream thinking, and that might be why your work is tiring you out. That might be why your business isn't growing. That might be why you're not profitable. Because if we're in downstream thinking, we're just reacting to everything, and we're not coming up with a long-term solution. The challenge with upstream thinking, as I'm kind of hinting at, is that we're actually not rewarded for it, right? So I reorganized my office. my wife didn't come in with a cake. My kids didn't jump up and down, start celebrating. That the reward is when I'm going to do the show and it's 1:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time, and I'm meeting with y'all live. I don't need to be in chaos. That's the reward. But the reward of it is almost hidden because you don't necessarily see it. What you do is that when you're not doing upstream thinking, you feel the pain of it. And often, as Ray Dalio and other people have said, often we're more receptive to pain and we learn better than it is from pleasure and from smoothness and from fluidity. But the more fluid our lives or our systems are, the better we can be. That is just one little example. The police example, one little example from this book is, again, one of my favorite business books probably of all time. Shout out to Dan. I would highly recommend the book. It's a really easy read. I listened to it in audiobook, and I'm guessing the audiobook was about 5 hours. So I mean, it wasn't too taxing. I think almost every example was easy to understand, even if you're not involved in business. I'm involved in business, so I'm a little bit biased, but I think it's pretty understandable from everyone, even if you're new to entrepreneurship and so forth. And it was the best seller many times over. So shout out to him. I think it's absolutely worth checking out. If part of your system has to do with, how can I frame it? If you're building your business, you're having issues with the revenue, you're having issues with the output and so forth, then there might be a foundational challenge of dealing with, and again, going back to systems. I did a special series exactly a year ago. I did a special series of lives, and they're all condensed in this one about how to start a business, so if you're starting from scratch, how to build your profit, and how to build up passive income. It's all in here. I think each program, I think the whole thing is probably about 2 hours long. Each program is about 45 minutes, half an hour, stuff like that. I think it's about 2 hours. Be sure and check it out. It's really good brain food. And again, we had a lot of good conversations. And some of y'all have chimed in too with really good insight. All that's on there. Be sure and check it out. I think you'd appreciate it.